This is Daf Yomi Yerushalmi in the article O's other edition. We're mamish at the top of Yudal Omid Aleph, beginning of the Gemara. In the Vilna edition, we are on Daf. Should be Zayin on base. That's it off. Zayin Omid base. The last line. Tani Somkin Omer Mitzagafani. Okay, so it says Gemara. Tani. We wrote in the Bible. So something Amar Mitzakafani. You can put sheaves of grain next to grapevines, and we're not concerned that a seed is going to fall out of the sheaves of grain, get planted in the ground, and make us problems of Kilei Aker. And Rabbi Yosef said, "Hadamar Asisha Asli Tabet Sad Kama Yevesha Geffen." Okay, that's only for a morim, which are separate from the ground. But if you have kama, even if it's dry, in other words, this grain still connected to the ground, if it's dry, you can't plant grapevines right next to them. And the next word, yavesh, is taken out by the Gra Reb Chaim. Mal is funny okay, so what about the flip side? You have dry grapevines. Can you plant grain next to them? Let's learn from here. Geffen shiav shaf, you have a grapevine which is dried, asura, it's forbidden. In other words, you can't plant next to it. But if you did plant next to it, it doesn't make the grain asur. As I said, Rabbi Meir, this is going to Rabbi Meir. Geffen at semer asur vein mekadesh. Rabbi Meir had a tremendous chiddush. Cotton, he was called semer geffen. So since it's called semer geffen, since it's called grape wool, so therefore he held that you can't, the Rabbanon, plant any grain next to a cotton plant. Okay, I guess it looks bad because it's called geffen, semer geffen. Here it says geffen, it's semer geffen. Also bein mekadesh, so it's also, but it's of course it's not mekadesh. It doesn't make true kilei kerem. Hadam Araz, it teaches us that shemutar, according to Rabbanon, not according to Meir, because only Meir has a skumra, and it's akin to a skumra by cotton, but Rabbanon do not have that problem. Vim tzamchu. So this going back on our Mishnah that it says if you want, you can if you have trees and you want to plant produce, you want to plant some you have grapevines and you want to plant produce there, so you cut down the grapevines and until they're less than tefach above the ground. So what happens then if the grapevines regenerate themselves and grow? Mutaras l'shavar. So they are a mutar for everything which already grew before you noticed it. It's not kilayim. Even presumably if it's more than a tefach, because again, you didn't want there to grow. But the moment you see it and you know it's there, you're not allowed to retain any grain which is going to grow afterwards, because that becomes also as a result of proximity to the newly rejuvenated grapevines. Kada, like the following case, Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Gam Kamaya. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda cut down his vineyards. Amarisa Puksa is told the sharecropper, go plant the grain. I mean the Zara Tzamchin. Once he planted the grain, the grapevines grew again. Amalei said, "Puk chatzod, go out and cut down the produce, because it's kilayim. Mean the chatzad. Once he the sharecropper cut down the produce, artevin, it got wet, and therefore it got full of worms, and it got rotten. It rotted. Amarle, so he said, "Puk, not the grain, the grapevine." Well, after he cut down the grapevine became evidently too moist, and they got worms, and they rotted. Amarle puk smach. So at that point, Shimon Yehuda said, "Oh, go back and plant grain again, because they're dead again." Rabbi Zia boy, Akadun Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Shu Amar Ladas Gemura. Okay, so that works according to Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda because it's clear that he didn't want the vineyard. He's so happy when there's no vineyard there. Other people who are not it's not so evident from the way their attitude that they don't want a vineyard. Right here, he was upset that it grew, and then he had to. That he had to cut it down, and then he wanted to plant it again as soon as possible. So it shows that he is complete das that there shouldn't be a vineyard there. But what about other people who don't manifest such complete das? What's their story? So the Gemara says that the ikradin, when it's less than a tefach, it's not considered to be a kerem, and therefore, even if once you megala that, that's sufficient. The reason why once it starts growing, Shimon by Yehuda cut it down is because of Marasayin halacha. In other words, here not the Marasayin which makes the chefts of Kilayim, which describes several times in the past, but because it looks bad. So even though Abidin, he could have left it there because he didn't want the grapevines, and he didn't have to uproot the wheat since the grapevines were shalol lefi rucha. But nevertheless, he did it. He didn't have to do it, but he did it. Other people, also, so once they cut it down less than a tefach, they can leave it. They can keep the produce even after the grapevines start regenerating themselves. Now, the moment because by putting it less than a tefach, they showed they're not interested, and they don't have to be machmir. That once it starts growing again, to remove the grain, that was from Shimon Yehuda's chumrah. But everybody else, they can leave it there, and until such time as presumably they show some interest in the grapevines by cultivating them, or I guess maybe in the grapevines once they grow grapes, maybe it might be a problem. Here, obviously, not growing grapes right away. Okay, I'm not sure about that. The Rash Cirilio has a very different shot, but the Gross is somewhat similar to what we just said. That even if the grapevine started growing, it's only they don't aser, and therefore we're not concerned that you're not going to harvest the grain before the grapevines actually fully rejuvenate themselves. And Rabbi Shimon Yehuda himself, that he didn't wait to harvest; he just chopped them down. That was his chumrah, and not that anybody else has to be machmir that way. Okay, says Gemara further. This is the head article is the header. V'chein tilson shehelo chule. There's the that the others don't have that header here. The header. But the Mishnah is a quote from the Mishnah, obviously. So it said, "V'chein tilson shehelo mini." Some emechayim so nakish don't require you to hoe the weeds in the middle. So Tani, we learned Yoshua. Now Yoshua here is Yoshua ben Nun. The best thing. It's Tani Yoshua. Okay, it was no worse than the Tana, right? So Yoshua ben Nun taught us that one of the 10 times which Yoshua made when they're at Yisrael, you're allowed to gather grass from wherever you want. In other words, you can go to your friend's field and take out grass. It's not considered gazel, presumably because they are weeds. Grass, not talking about a lawn. It's interesting the grass. It's talking about where grass in the middle of his produce. So it's a weed, so there's no reason why you can't take it. Chutz misad tilson, except for the grasses in a fenugreek field that you're not allowed to gather. This is difficult on our Mishnah, right? Because our Mishnah says that it's great that grass. Our Mishnah said that you can gather grass, right? In that case, right? You don't require him to hoe to remove the weeds. So, but it sounds like you should remove the weeds. So I'm sorry, not the other way. You don't require him to harvest to cut down the weeds. So sounds like you can cut down the weeds, right? So it sounds like it is a form of a weed. So if that's the case, why not so the tilson? Rabbi Yaakov Baracham Hashem Rabbi Yitzchak Nachman says Kishazora Amir he masnisa. So that the case of the brisa is uh, the case of the brisa is a case of where you planted it for animal fodder. Then he can gather the grass because that grass together with the tilson makes up a better fodder or more volume of fodder. Since they're also macha behema. But if you planted it for people, no, then you don't want it there. And then, in fact, if it's planted for people, so then Yeshua's tonight does not apply. Yeshua's tonight is you're not allowed to uproot the grasses in the fenugreek field because they could also be part of the fodder. If it's made for human beings, you don't want those grasses, and therefore anybody would be allowed to take in the grasses. We're not mechayiv to take out the grasses, but you should take out the grasses. Anybody can take out the grasses. Obviously, we're not trying to take out the grasses on our mission because we know people are not interested in them. So they didn't plant them deliberately, and therefore there's no issue of kilayim. Now, I have decided in my Gemara here that ain't advarim ala seder kan. Next things are not in order. So, and that makes sense. The next line probably should be earlier. So it says, in other words, this is part of the question. So therefore it should have said, before Rabbi Yaakov Baracham Hashem Rabbi Yitzchak, should have said this line. But now it said, okay. That was Rabbi Yaakov Baracham Hashem Rabbi Yitzchak and Nachman. Rabbi Yaakov Baracham Hashem Garmei, in his own name, said, our Mishnah is specifically speaking about where you want it for seed. And there, we're not mechayiv you to remove the grasses because you want the fenugreek for seed. You certainly don't want it for. You certainly don't want to have the grasses there, and therefore it's clearly not kilayim. But in a case where human beings might eat it, it's made for human beings. Then in that case, in fact, perhaps it is considered to be a problem. And Yeshua's Tanai Yeshua is when you according to this Yeshua's Tanai, which is that you can't gather the grasses, would apply not just to for animal fodder, but also for if you plant for human beings. So not just of Amir. I think I contradicted myself. As I said that if you wanted to be there, it would be kilayim. But that's not true. It's not kilayim. Different issue here. The grass is never kilayim with the tilson because the grass is always harmful to the tilson. The question is then, okay, why do Yeshua say you can't take it away? So the one and it seems also contradicts our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says that you don't have to remove it, but it sounds like if you want, you can remove it, right? In other words, so then other people should be allowed to remove it as well. So the first answer was that Yaakov Baracham Hashem Rabbi Yitzchak said it's our Mishnah talking about we plant for animal fodder, and he wants the grass, so therefore. Therefore, in our Mishnah, since he wants it, sorry. In the case of the Yoshua, it's not considered. He wants some animal fodder, and therefore you're not allowed to uproot the tilson. In a case of our Mishnah, he wants it for human consumption. And therefore, there's no isser, will be no isser somebody else to come and move the grass. We're not mechayiv to move the grass because it's not because of damages, but somebody else can come and remove it. Yeshua's time is not apply. Rabbi Yaakov Baracham comes along and says his own name. There are Mishnah which holds that you not chayiv to remove the not to remove the tilson, but it's not also to remove the tilson is when it's planted for zera. It's planted to use as seed again. But if it's planted there, but where is it going to be a shul apply? It's going to be a shul applies not just by animal fodder, but also by human consumption. As long as it's not planted for seed, you can now take away the grass. Okay, the Yeshua's takana applies. Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said, "Chi lo boy Yeshua faresh el over avera." So Rabbi Yehuda, Yeshua said, when Yeshua said you're not Rabbi Yeshua said you're not allowed to gather the grass from the fenugreek field. Wait a minute. If he wants it for human consumption, then it is kilayim. If he wants it for animal fodder, it's kilayim. Our mission just assume that he doesn't want it. Okay, you said it's just his Raymond doesn't want it, but if that's the case, it sounds like you do want it there for fodder and even for human food. That's the case. It doesn't automatically become kilayim. Yeshua tells you can't collect it. He's telling you, let's protect the over avera or plant the kilayim. Doesn't make sense, right? Avar avera asim mishum gazel, lo avar avera mutar mishum gazel. Could it be? If you're over the avera, then it's osir. If you're not over the avera, then it's mutar. Have a low shani hishazar lazera, hishazar lo amir. So he says it doesn't make a difference what you planted for. It can't be kilayim. You can't want it because then it'd be kilayim. So that which it says it's also to gather the grass is whether you plant it for animal fodder or whether you plant it for seed. And nobody wants grass to grow by their tilson. No, the contrary. He says that it doesn't matter what it doesn't damage. You do want the grass. Doesn't matter. Amir, you want the grass there. Why is it not kilayim? Why should you have to uproot it? So im the kind of puts him from the manuscript. Im oimer daito aleim yichayvo solinakish. Right, if he has to ask them, he should be required to uproot them. Rabbi Yemaisha said, "Rotu and kila kurin munachil." Very interesting along this. He wants them not in the ground. He wants them uprooted. He wants them, in other words, Yeshua asked him to uproot them, not because they're not kilayim, they are kilayim, but he wants, and he doesn't want them to remain growing in the ground because it's going to be kilayim, and it's going to be harmful, the grasses. But he wants, when they're uprooted, that they should remain by him, so he can use it for his animal fodder, maybe for himself even. So that's what the pshat. In other words, it's not kilayim because it's taka harmful. But so why can't you take it out? Because he doesn't want you to take it away. If you want to cut it down and leave it there for him to use, great. But he doesn't want you. He wants a kurim munach in the front of, not that you cut it away and use it for your own purposes. Gemara is going to consider along these lines, continue along these lines, but already on Daf Tezvav, so we will stop here for now.